Dana White recently announced that the winner of the UFC 209 co-main event between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson will then be given the opportunity to fight the current lightweight champion for the title. And while I'm not a huge fan of interim belts and interim title fights, I do like it this time around. I'll explain that when I get to the prediction. But the fact of the matter is, Conor McGregor, it's still been a question whether he's going to actually defend his lightweight title. He didn't defend the featherweight title. He went and was supposed to face Rafael dos Anjos. That fell through. He fought Nate Diaz not once but twice at welterweight. You know, if you take that by itself and say featherweight champion wins the title, unseats arguably the greatest featherweight champion we've ever seen, takes his next two fights at welterweight. That's crazy talk right there. That's crazy talk. But the fact that he is now questioning whether he'll actually defend his lightweight titles or not. Conor has no problem going up, putting nothing on the line, challenging a fighter for their belt and taking it. You are not a champion until you defended your belt at least once. That applies here, and it applies in a big way, because Conor needs to be put in a position where you're the champion and you're facing one of these hungry dogs, whether he be Khabib Nurmagomedov or Tony Ferguson, who wants what you have. And you have to beat them back, beat the wolves back at the door, and prove that you are the champ. And that's the only way you're going to do it. And until he does that and puts what he has won on the line, I'm not set. I'm not set with his legacy. And he doesn't give a shit about what I say about his legacy. But the fact of the matter is, no one else should be either. He can talk about the Money Mayweather fight and the big money fight and all that all he wants. But until he defends a mixed martial arts belt at least once, he's not a champion in my eyes. He has the belt. He won the belt. Congratulations. That was fantastic. He looked damn impressive. But until he willingly gets in the cage with that reputation, with that strap on the line, with him risking it all, he's missing something. That legacy is not complete as far as him being one of the greatest fighters of all time, if he is one of the greatest fighters of all time. I'm still up in the air. He's looked fantastic, but there are holes. We'll see if they can be exploited. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. On this episode of the show, we're breaking down the upcoming UFC 209 event, which will take place on March 4th from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, and feature 5 main card fights, which I will be breaking down for you on this episode of the show. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. As is always the case, you can go for any major UFC event. You can go and vote on the polls, pick who you think is going to win each card, see who everyone else is backing. It's always fun to see that. And my bet packs will be available for purchase, and boy, howdy, have they been on fire. Boy, howdy. I don't say that very often, but it's definitely needed here. At the last event where I went 8-3 overall, my big bankroll where I invest large chunks of money on lower risk bets, I bet 51 units. I return set was 71.52, so that's a return of profit of just over 20 units, 20.52 units, a rate of return on your investment of 40.24%, which is damn good considering a lot of people, kick the tires usually around 17, 18% for the year. So far through the first 5 events of the year, my rate of return on my big bankroll, 31.71%. That's pretty damn awesome. My big reward barely made anything. It basically returned a profit of 0.35 units, so nothing. But you didn't lose money. You won a small amount. So far, my rate of return on my big reward, 68.32% on your investment. You've bet 153 units and returned 257.53. That's a profit of 104.53 units over the first 5 shows in 2017. We're kicking ass, people, and taking names. I've only had 1 negative show out of my first 5 on each event. That's pretty damn good. 3 of my 4 winning cards for my big rewards bet bundle, which all comes in the $15 bet pack, have been, let's see here, my rate of returns, 141%, 158%, and 179%. They've been massive returns, big-time returns. I can't say I can keep this up, but so far we are off to a fantastic start. As far as straight-up predicting fights and seeing who you're going to come away with as winners this year, out of 57 fights in 2017, I have correctly predicted 43 right. That's a 75% accuracy rate. That's pretty good. I had one. I'm tooting my own horn. Why not? I went 10-0 at UFC 208, which isn't, it wasn't a hard card to predict, but I did pick up a couple nice upsets. We also, I think I won, dating back to my back-to-back upsets to finish UFC Fight Night 104. I think I won 15 straight fights before I eventually lost one, which was the questionable split decision involving Carlos Esparza. That loss prevented me from winning a lot more money and really having a crackerjack of a night. But either way, if you're looking at investing, looking at betting on the card, $15 will get you an entire bet breakdown of everything, or you can subscribe for the next 6 cards. At full price, it would be $90 for 6 cards at $15 a pop. I'll probably throw it up there for about $70 in the bet packs. You're getting about $20 off. So it's basically the equivalent of getting one bet pack for free and a second one for $5 off, or however you want to look at it. Either way, if you're interested in betting and you wanted to, purchase the bet pack, that's fine. And again, for those people last week, I do a guarantee, or not guarantee, but I post a parlay. That basically, if you bet $10 on it, it will cover the cost of your $10 bet plus the cost of buying the bet pack. If that parlay does not win, which was the case last week because the Carlos Bar is a loss, and neither one of the betting bundles makes a profit, then you will get, and you send me a screen capture, I'll give you the next bet pack for free. But because of both of my bet bundles made profit last time out, then it's obviously that offer's null and void. But if everything across the board goes for a shitter and you can show me the screen capture, you're in business. I will hook you up with a free bet pack next time around. That's a long intro. We got 5 fantastic fights to break down. Let's get to that first matchup. We are jump-starting the card right up in the UFC's heavyweight division as a pair of former title challengers. Number 3 ranked Alistair the Reem Overeem, 41 wins, 15 losses, and 1 no contest, takes on the 8th ranked Super Samoan Marcin with a current record of 12 wins, 11 defeats, and 1 draw. Now, Overeem is coming off a title fight loss. It took him 9 UFC fights to get there, including a 4-fight winning streak. There is a potential for a post-title fight letdown for the Reem. For Marcin, he lost his interim title fight back at UFC 180 to Fabricio Verdum. He then ultimately, after having quit a streak, lost his next fight to Stipe Miocic as well. Another example of that post-title fight letdown. Now, there's been a lot of issues, a little animosity between the UFC and Hunt, so maybe we'll see if that's playing a factor at all. He obviously was upset with the UFC 200 defeat against Brock Lesnar, which is because Brock tested positive. Ultimately, that's been overturned to a no contest. He had won back-to-back fights prior to that matchup. Physically, Overeem, a lot of advantages here. He is 6 inches taller than Mark. He'll have an 8-inch reach advantage, and he's actually the younger man by 6 years as well. Now, looking at Overeem first, he has 18 wins by knockout, including 3 of 4 of his wins on his recent streak coming via knockout, KO or TKO. He also has 10 losses by knockout, including the title fight defeat, 19 wins by submission, which a lot of people seems to still pass people by as well, and he has 4-3 on the scorecards. For Mark Hunt, 9 wins by TKO or KO, 4 losses via the same method, including losses to Junior Dos Santos, Fabricio Verdum, and Stipe Miocic, all former champions, so top-level guys. Melvin Manhoef, the other one way back in the day, to hand him that 4th knockout loss. He has 6 losses by submission, which is something that you never know Alistair Overeem might look at here. Now, Overeem's current rise to success has really hinged upon his recent strategic shift, if you will. He is much more focused on using a defensive front, more calculated to try and limit his opponent's ability to do damage. Even in his loss, when you go all the way back to the Ben Rothwell fight, he was having a lot of success early until Rothwell clipped him. And that's the thing. He has a lot more of a strategic defensive front, looking for those opportunities to eventually land something significant. That winning streak, despite his successes, there are holes. He was hurt by Roy Nelson late in that fight. He ultimately got knocked out by Stipe Miocic on the mat, so it's not like it's impregnable. It's just been better. Overall, he's very hard to hit. He keeps his hands up and out almost to catch and parry his opponent's strikes as they come in. I'll wonder, he has a tendency to lean those hands forward a little bit. We'll see if the rule changes and how extending fingers towards your opponent is a foul. We'll see if that forces him to modify anything. When he fought Stipe, he was running away a lot to try and create separation, reset, create that distance to allow him to kind of get set again. I didn't like it, but ultimately it was something he chose to do to try and make things work. Where he gets in trouble, and this is probably why he was running away, is when his opponents back him up and get him against the cage. We saw Andrei Arlovski swarm him early. Stipe had a little success. And even Roy Nelson was unloading on him as well in that scenario. Despite his reach, he has a tendency to try and launch himself into his opponents when he attacks, throwing knees, big strikes as well. So it's like he almost stays on the outside, and then boom, commits himself to some offensive maneuvers. When he fought Stefan Struve, he used takedowns in that fight. He eventually got to the inside, used those takedowns. Could he look for something similar against Mark Hunt? Put him on his back, pound away, wear Mark Hunt out, take away the knockout factor that Mark Hunt's not going to catch a guy off his back. As I said, he could look for that top position. For Mark Hunt, the guy is a monster. He's got big-time knockout power. He's not really a finesse striker, even though he's got some very solid technique. He throws some exceptionally hard low kicks. Sometimes not enough. I like to see a little bit more of them, but a lot of times it's because he's afraid of being taken down. He throws a very good straight right. He'll mix in a left uppercut as well. He throws a volatile leaping left hook. He'll mix in. It really can catch guys, and he kind of uses that to close distance. Some of his best strikes are when he can get in on the inside and really close the distance and let go with those hands. He had that brutal walk Wilson. He does tend to be a little bit flat-footed in the center of the cage, which can hurt him trying to track down more mobile opponents. But if he can get them to come to him, look out. When Hunt fought Stipe, he was having a lot of trouble with that forward pressure that the former champion offered him. And that's something that Overeem, it would be a break from character if he looked to do that. That's something it would be interesting to see if he tries to put it on Mark Hunt early on and back him up. The same thing, Hunt's cardio certainly suffered when Stipe looked for takedowns. He exhausted him. Again, can Overeem exploit that? I don't know. As I said before, Hunt does some of his best work on the inside. He comes forward with a 1-2 punch. He'll land barrages on the inside. He has his leaping left hook. He has a nice step-in elbow he'll offer as well. But the big thing is he needs to find a way to close that distance or counter Overeem when he does look to launch forward and attack. The one thing I've seen out of Alistair that I don't like is the way he shells up when he's trying to go real defensive. His opponent has decided, yeah, I'm going to engage, and here's what I'm going to throw. And Hunt has that type of power. If he can punch around the guard, he can put you out. I think the way we're going to see things here, again, we're looking at the post-title fight letdown scenario for Alistair Overeem. I think we're going to see Mark Hunt close the gap here, possibly after Overeem slows down a little bit. If Mark Hunt survives the early onslaught and Overeem starts to slow down in rounds 2 and 3, I think especially towards round 3, if Mark Hunt can make him work a little bit. If Overeem shells up, that'll be a massive mistake, and I think that's where Hunt's going to capitalize. Look for him to punch around that guard, land hooks around, on the temple, on the ear, around that shelled up position that Overeem offers. Maybe come underneath with an uppercut. The other possibility is he catches Overeem with a counter strike as he comes in. Either way, I think Mark Hunt's eventually going to catch Alistair Overeem on a chin that is a little bit questionable, and my prediction is Mark Hunt to defeat Alistair Overeem by knockout. Fight number 2 in the main card takes place in UFC's lightweight division as the surging, groovy Lando Vannata, 9 wins and 1 loss, takes on an equally as impressive opponent in the 5-1 David Teymur of Sweden. Now, Vannata is coming off his first win after the first loss of his career. He defeated John McDessie via wheel kick knockout in impressive fashion. Obviously, he lost his debut the fight before that. It was on short notice against Tony Ferguson. It was an amazing fight. Definitely check that out. He hurt Ferguson on multiple occasions and certainly had a good showing considering he came into that fight on exceptionally short notice. For Teymur, so far he's 2-0 in the UFC, both wins by knockout. He has won 4 in a row overall since his time on The Ultimate Fighter. Statistic, or at least looking at their numbers, Vannata 4 wins by knockout, 4 submission wins, so a little bit of multi-dimensional there. His 1 loss coming by the aforementioned submission, 1 decision win, so just 1-0 on the cards. Other than that decision win, he's only gone to the second round 1 time in victory. He went to the second round against Ferguson as well. Both guys 5'9", 2-inch reach advantage for Teymur. He is also 3 years older. Now Vannata looking first. He has good head movement. Excellent flow to his striking attack. He's very light on his feet, almost lackadaisical at times, but he makes it work. He enters and exits from different angles when he's attacking, and he chains his takedown attempts together with his strikes, really making it difficult to anticipate what he is actually doing as it's disguised so well. He'll throw a nice left jab. He hurt Ferguson with a spinning back fist. He works in a very hard straight right. He hurt Ferguson with that as well. He hurt him on multiple occasions in that matchup. Lots of kicks. He has a lead oblique kick as well. He'll throw some good low kicks, turning side kick to the body. Obviously, he hurt Ferguson with a head kick that he's able to work in as well. That wheel kick that he landed on McDessie to knock him out was just unbelievable. It was just another day at the office. Minimal effort, landed it, walked away, didn't need any follow-up stuff. Very impressive. Now, when he fought Tony Ferguson, he was wearing down in the second round of that matchup. The pace was unreal. He was taking a lot of damage and dishing it out as well. But also the short notice was a huge factor, and that's a lot of people are crediting. But keep in mind, he has a lack of long fight experience. So there's something there to be said there for a guy who has not gone deep in matchups. Is that going to be an issue at this level? We'll see. He has a style that's very loose, so I would imagine it isn't. But, if it was, the other scenarios in that fight certainly would disguise it. Now, for David Teymur, he comes from a striking background. He KO'd Svensson in his debut with a brutally beautiful uppercut, if you will. When he fought Jason Novelli, he stunned and swarmed him with short punches, eventually getting him out of there. He throws a variety of leg strikes, both hard, low, and body kicks. He does a nice job of catching his opponent's kicks and returning fire as well. Works in a nice stiff right jab, left hook combination. He strikes during transitions, which I like very much. His attacks do have a tendency to carry him into the clinch, which can open him up to takedowns from his opponents, but at the same time, he is very brutal on the inside, using hard knee strikes. He'll throw them at range as well, but in the clinch, he is very vicious with those knee strikes. When he fought in the Ultimate Fighter, he was dropped early in that matchup, seemed a little bit tentative at times. I said he can be taken down. He was on that show in that fight as well. It ultimately cost him his run in the TUF tournament. We really haven't seen that so far in the UFC. And speaking of which, we haven't seen Vannata's ground game as well. He hasn't put a lot of it on display either inside the octagon, but that could be a big factor in this fight as he looks to be the more diversified fighter. Teymur has had issues as well waiting on opponents. Not in recent fights, but holding back and being a little too tentative, looking for the perfect opportunity to strike. I wonder if that unorthodox style of Vannata could create issues for him. If not, maybe he steamrolls right through him, or at least, goes toe-to-toe with him. I look at this fight and I see Lando having more avenues to victory. He could hurt him on the feet. He could take him down, look for a decision or a submission. He could outwork him on the feet and be the more active striker. For Teymur, he could knock him out, or he could be the more impactful striker as well, but he doesn't have that grappling avenue, and because that grappling avenue exists for Vannata, it certainly could take a little bit of the edge off of the striking of Teymur, as he could be afraid of being taken down. Vannata just is a more diversified striker. He's a little more unorthodox. I think it's going to create issues for Teymur. We've seen Teymur hurt in a fight before, and obviously Vannata has been as well. That taste of top-level competition, I think, is going to rub off on him and continue to showcase that skill. My prediction is Lando Vannata to defeat David Teymur. I'll take Lando by TKO. Fight number 3 on the main card is certainly, or at least initially, it was a head-scratcher. And to a lot of people, it still is. But we are in the middleweight division as former light heavyweight champion Sugar Rashad Evans makes his divisional debut with a record of 24 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. And he is taking on the Aussie upset machine, if you will, Daniel Kelly, 12 wins and 1 defeat. The guy just keeps winning. As I said, Evans is making his long-awaited debut at 185 pounds. The division, a lot of people have said this is perfect for him. Cut down. You're a smaller light heavyweight. Go down. See what you can do at 185. That's a big cut, 20 pounds. From 205 down to 185. We'll see how that pans out for him. He's had some medical issues of late that have canceled a couple of fights, which is certainly interesting. Apparently, he's been cleared for this matchup, which is good. He's gone 11 months since his last fight, which was a loss to Glover Teixeira, and he's 2-4 in his last 6 bouts. But again, he's facing top-level competition. This is certainly a step back, but not to discredit Kelly. The guy has been impressive of late. And in that impressive run, he has defied the odds. He has picked up upsets in all of his UFC victories. The guy is 5-1 in the UFC. If he beats Rashad Evans, we could wake up Monday morning and Daniel Kelly could be ranked possibly in the top 15 in the UFC's middleweight division. I'm not guaranteeing it, but it's certainly a possibility. Both men are 6 feet tall. 5-inch reach advantage for Rashad Evans, which is a big thing. It's shocking here. Kelly's seen it, viewed as an older man. You look at the guy, he's an old guy. He's like getting beat up by your dad or by your grandpa. Rashad Evans is only 2 years younger than Kelly. He's been at this a long time. So there's the age thing, more mileage, MMA mileage on Evans's wheels. But obviously Kelly competing in the Olympics, he's got a lot more. He's got some combat mileage as well. Now looking at Dan Kelly's numbers, he has 5 wins by submission, 4 decision wins. He is 3-0 in fights ended by knockout. In the UFC, 3 decision victories. He has a TKO over Antonio Carlos Jr. And for the most part, he's a rallier. He's a guy who might get off to a bit of a slow start, might drop the opening round, but he tends to come around and pick up wins. People count him out of fights before the fight starts. They count him out of fights as the first round is going. Even after the first round, even later on in matches, in fights, they count him out. He still finds a way to pick it up. For Rashad Evans, he's 10-3 on the scorecards. 10-3 in fights ended by 10-3 on the scorecards, 8-2 in fights ended by knockout. His chin has been a major issue. He's been hurt in other fights in addition to being knocked out a couple of times. The big question is here, if Rashad Evans loses this matchup, is he done? He will most certainly wreck his chances of making around 185 pounds. Again, take nothing away from Dan Kelly, but if he loses to Dan Kelly, all that momentum that he could have possibly picked up by getting a couple of victories at 185 pounds and putting himself right in the middle of things. He has a win over the champion right now. It was in another life, it seems, but still. this is a big fight for Rashad Evans. It's a big fight for Dan Kelly. This is like he's fighting a former champion. This is his heavyweight. This is his world championship moment. Probably the highest fight biggest fight he'll ever get on a pay-per-view. For Evans, this is the start of a 185-pound run that he needs to make to remain relevant. Kelly, judo background. He's a gritty fighter. He sticks around. He says he wears on opponents, and he's still there when he shouldn't be, and they start to slow down, and he takes over. He lost the opening round against Antonio Carlos Jr. in a wipeout. But the Brazilian faded, got stopped. Took him a bit to find his range versus Chris Camozzi. Eventually, Camozzi, who's known for being gritty and durable himself, faded and lost a decision. Dan Kelly has no problem taking shots to land them. He's not a pretty striker, not very fleet of foot, but he's willing to stand in there and land his punches and do some damage. Evans should have a speed advantage in this fight. He needs to be able to stay out of Kelly's range, strike, and retreat. Be elusive. Don't let Dan Kelly stick in your face and land his punches and do damage. Don't be shocked, though, to see Rashad Evans look for takedowns. We've seen him revert to his wrestling when he wants to really show who he is and how dominant he can be. Kelly has struggled off his back. Antonio Carlos Jr. really did a number on him from top position, and that's something if Rashad can take him down, he will have a lot of success there, too. Evans, at the same time, can be pressured. He can be hit. Can Kelly hurt him / finish him? Quite possibly. Can he do enough damage early on to back Rashad up, make him second-guess himself, and not be nearly as effective a fighter? Absolutely. That certainly could happen in this matchup. There's some big questions here. Will the cut to 185 pounds affect the cardio of Rashad Evans? Could it, it could very well create an opening that Kelly can, do his typical rally, come from behind after a rocky start, and pick up the victory. The speed, though, in this fight should be the deciding factor. All of Kelly's opponents that he's faced, they're lower-level guys, average or maybe mid-tier, like a guy like Chris Camozzi or Antonio Carlos Jr. They have had average to below-average foot speed, not very quick. That has allowed him to hang around on the feet, stay in the fight, lean on him, land some strikes, make it gritty, and take over when needed. Rashad Evans shouldn't be in that scenario. He should be quicker than Daniel Kelly. Evans should be too quick for Daniel Kelly. He should score some takedowns and look to take a page out of Antonio Carlos Jr.'s book. Put Kelly on his back where he cannot lean on you. Don't get sloppy with your striking like Antonio Carlos Jr. did. Be the more effective, quicker to the punch, quicker to the takedown fighter. Avoid getting busted up with Kelly landing some of those, old man shots on you that are devastatingly crushing. Old man power, if you will. The other thing I think Evans, he's going to enjoy not being the smaller man here. If the cardio isn't too big, if the cut isn't too big of a factor here, I think Rashad Evans is going to enjoy not being the smaller man at 185 pounds as he was at 205. He's not going to get muscled around. I think this is I am not counting Daniel Kelly out, and I will be putting a counter bet down on Daniel Kelly 100%, and there probably won't be a bet to be made on Rashad Evans in this matchup, unless we're looking at a prop, which I've had success in the least. But I'm going to pick Rashad Evans to win this fight by TKO. So my prediction is Rashad Evans to defeat Daniel Kelly by TKO. Let's make it official. That statement makes it official for me. But do not count Daniel Kelly out. And a part of me is rooting for him, but I can't pick him in this matchup because it would just be considered it's not a long shot, but good luck, Daniel Kelly. My best wishes. I'd love to see you pull it out. But there we go. Evans by TKO. In the co-main event of the evening, the interim UFC lightweight title will be on the line as the number 1 ranked fighter in the division, Khabib the Eagle Nurmagomedov of Russia, undefeated at 24-0, taking on the number 2 ranked fighter in the division, former Ultimate Fighter winner Tony El Kakui Ferguson, with an impressive record as well, 23 wins and 3 losses. Now, as previously mentioned in the intro, the winner of this fight gets a shot at Conor McGregor. If McGregor takes his ball and goes home, the winner of this fight will be the new lightweight champion. It's just the way it is. And, I hope Conor does the right thing here and fights the winner of this fight. He needs to. This is one of the few reasons I'm actually cool with an interim title fight. I never thought I'd see myself saying this. It makes this a 5-round fight. If this was not for the interim title belt, we're looking at a 3-round fight. This is a championship caliber fight. It needs to be contested over 5 rounds if it needs to go that far. If it gets decided earlier than that, fantastic. But we need 5 rounds to at least be in play here. And that's fantastic. It's impressive to see we have a 9-fight winning streak on Ferguson's side, 12-1 in the UFC, taking on a guy who was 24-0. It's just a clash of titans, and I love it. Ferguson, 1 inch taller, he'll have a sizable 6-inch reach advantage. And just to give you some comparison, Michael Johnson, who just fought Nurmagomedov, had a 3-inch reach advantage against the Russian. Nurmagomedov is the younger man by 4 years. Now, the first thing that's certainly popped up as far as the noteworthiness of this fight before it even hits the cage, Robin Black did a fantastic breakdown. I love the enthusiasm that Robin brings to all of his breakdowns of the sport. It exhausts me watching him break fights down. I'm a fast talker, especially when I'm in the classroom. I'm a fast talker. But Robin is just on another level. Very just, and I thought accurate breakdown of both men's skills. He doesn't actually give a prediction, didn't give a winner, but that's not what he's supposed to do. He gives a great analysis of the fight. And it was interesting enough, Khabib Nurmagomedov blocked Robin Black on Twitter. Now, it could very well be the person who's managing Nurmagomedov's Twitter account. Either way, that's pretty interesting that he didn't like the analysis. I thought it was fair. I thought he brought up some excellent points on both sides, which I'm going to draw from here. And I 100% am stealing some of Robin Black's ideas because they're accurate. They're bang. You can't do it much better than that. So, looking first, Tony Ferguson, the guy is a multi-dimensional fighter with both striking and submission, grappling, wrestling. The guy brings a whole dynamic whirlwind of offense against you. For Khabib Nurmagomedov, he is a smothering, elite-level ground fighter. Smothering. He does one thing. He's a decent striker. He's got some power in his hands, but he does one thing better than everything else he does. Looking at the Russian first, actually, Nurmagomedov, he wants to close the gap. He wants to get in on the inside and close you down with his wrestling, with his sambo, with his grappling. Any pocket striking he's doing, any range striking he's doing is with the goal of closing the distance to get on the inside. He wants to establish that body-to-body connection, as Robin talks about, that body lock setup where he can look to try and drag you to the fight. He'll lace up a leg. He'll look for a trip in comparison. If he can't quite get you in that position, look for a hip toss to get your balance, your body moving, and use that momentum against you to put you on the mat. We've also seen him shoot in. He did it against Abel Trujillo. Shoot in for a traditional double leg or single leg, elevate your opponent, and drive them to the mat. He's good at putting guys on the ground. Once he gets on the mat, his ground and pound is ferocious. He's constantly looking to pass. He exhausts guys, keeps advancing. We saw him against Michael Johnson lock up a crucifix and just wail away and punish him on the mat to the point where he wanted the fight to stop because he had done so much damage to Johnson on the floor. He did an excellent job in that fight of controlling his opponent's hand, whether with his own hand, trapping it with an arm, using a leg or a knee to control it, and that just renders the fighter less able to defend themselves from those shots and end up to getting TKO'd. Now, one of the interesting things, though, when his distance striking was a bit of an issue against MJ in that fight. He got clipped on the outside, got hurt early on, and he's always had issues where his head has been up and chin out, especially when under attack, and it hasn't cost him. But it could against an elite level guy, and he's certainly facing an elite level opponent in Tony Ferguson in this fight. Johnson in that fight early on had a lot of success with those long punches and being very active and continuing that and just being in his face and attacking. He hurt Nurmagomedov with a good combination, and eventually Nurmi got in on the inside. Nurmi, I don't normally call him that, but whatever. Got in on the inside and shot for a takedown and took him down. And that changed the complexion of the fight completely. But certainly anybody who was backing Khabib in that matchup certainly had some issues with how the early stages of that fight was going. The other thing Nurmagomedov likes to do is he likes to try and bait his opponents in. If he can't close the distance, waits for his opponents to close the distance to engage, and then boom, changes levels and looks for a takedown, puts them on the mat. Now you look at Tony Ferguson, the guy is a risk taker. He's exceptionally aggressive. It has paid off for the most part in his fights. It nearly cost him a split decision against Danny Castillo a year or two ago. It could be longer now. In a fight he won by split decision where he spent some time on his back because he was being so aggressive and attacking. Castillo was jumping on and holding top position, and Ferguson won the decision, but still a lot of people questioned it, especially Danny Castillo after that fight. I had Ferguson. I think I went undefeated that night in predictions and had a lot of money, so I was happy with the outcome. The question is, if Tony gets taken down, can he hold guard? Can he maintain and keep Nurmagomedov limited from top position? Additionally, can he be taken down? Can Ferguson be put on his back? It's easier said than done. If he is taken down, he's very dangerous on the mat, and we know that Darce choke, he's exceptionally dangerous, but again, he has to be in a position to use that. And we'll talk about that in a moment. He holds good space when he's striking. Does a very good job of maintaining space that makes it difficult for his opponents to get in on the inside and shoot for that takedown. When he fought Dos Anjos, he showed excellent takedown defense where RDA shot in, got on his hips. The combination of balance and power from Ferguson was able to defend and push Dos Anjos away. Very impressive. He was active off his back once he was taken down in that situation, and he used his leg to create space, got back up. We'll see if he can do that against a smotherer like Nurmagomedov. The other big thing is we've seen that front headlock. If Nurmi shoots when he shouldn't, Ferguson shuts down the shot attempt with that front headlock, and he'll look to lock up a Darce choke, and that's something, I don't know if he can submit Nurmagomedov, but at least if he can use that to deter him from shooting, that takes away one avenue for him to get the fight to the mat. The big advantage Ferguson has is his striking. He can do damage in the pocket with shorts, punches, and elbows and everything else. He can work at distance with much longer strikes and good kicks. He has excellent timing, gets good extension on everything he throws from the outside, and that's a big factor, is how long can he maintain that distance? What kind of damage can he do? Can he dissuade Nurmagomedov from closing that gap and getting in on his hips? That's a big factor in this fight. Ferguson has more dimensions. There's no denying that. He is a more diversified fighter, but Nurmagomedov's sambo, his wrestling, his overall grappling and mat game is elite, and that is a huge factor here. Nurmagomedov's never gone 5 rounds. That's a big factor as well. How will he fare looking for takedowns in rounds 3, 4, and 5 against a guy like Ferguson, who is so relentless? Ferguson showed against Rafael dos Anjos, an elite level guy, a former champion. He can go 5 rounds and win a fight and look great doing it. Taking Ferguson down is hard. Keeping him down could be more difficult. Keeping him down over 5 rounds could be even more difficult. Even if he beats him up, Tony is just a non-stop monster. Ferguson's going to keep Nurmagomedov. He's going to outwork him with his vertical output. He's going to punish him when he comes in. I think Nurmagomedov is flawed with his striking. I think Michael Johnson showed us that he can be hurt on the feet. I think Ferguson's going to back Nurmagomedov up. I don't know if Ferguson can submit him. And I'm looking at this saying, if he does submit him, it'll probably be due to exhaustion. So my original pick here was Tony Ferguson by submission. Or decision, but I'm going to change my gears. I'm going to change the way I'm looking at this. I'm going to say my prediction is Tony Ferguson to defeat Khabib Nurmagomedov by submission. I'm expecting Nurmagomedov to eventually get worn down with the striking, worn down looking for takedowns, and eventually make a sloppy shot. Ferguson will do what he does, lock up that Darce choke and get the tap. Ferguson defeats Nurmagomedov by submission. And now we move to the main event of the evening. It is a rematch, and it will be a rematch with the UFC's welterweight championship on the line. As the champion, Tyron, the chosen one, Woodley, 16 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw, takes on the number 1 ranked fighter in the division, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, 13 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Now, these two individuals are running it back from a rematch at UFC 205. It was the co-main event 3 months ago. I'm very glad they are getting the headliner in this fight on this card. It was, of course, fought under the McGregor-Alvarez fight. I picked Thompson to win that night, and initially when they announced Woodley had won, I lost a whole shitload of money. But then when they went back and announced, no, it's a draw, I was elated. It was less money, but it was still money. It's better than a 0. So we'll see if I stick to my guns here, or we'll see if I saw some things that might make me change my mind. Interestingly enough, both guys know George St. Pierre is back in the UFC. I know Thompson really has a lot of connections there, but even though George has talked about going to 155 pounds, if he doesn't, or eventually decides he wants to go up to 170 to fight for the title, these guys know whoever has the belt at that time is in for a massive fight against the former champion, the greatest welterweight of all time. So certainly holding on to this belt until that bout materializes is worth a lot of money. Physically, Thompson's 3 inches taller, 1 inch reach advantage. He is 1 year older. Then Woodley, when you look back at the first fight, the rounds went as such. Tyron Woodley got 148-47. The other 2 cards went 47-47. There were some 10-8 rounds involved. There was a peculiar 10-8 given out by one judge for a round that wasn't a dominant one-sided round. There was another round that was and probably should have got that 10-8, so it kind of worked out in the wash. But still, Woodley got the belt. He got 1 nod, but still he obviously wasn't happy with his performance. Thompson walked away with nothing but this stinking rematch. So here you go. Statistically, in that first fight, significant strikes favored the champion. 61 significant strikes to 43 for Thompson. But if you look at that, they came in bursts. We had 47 strikes for Woodley in round 4 with a knockdown. He landed 14 in round 1 with a takedown. So that is 41 of his 61 strikes in 2 rounds. That just leaves 20 significant strikes over the other 3 rounds. That's not a lot. Thompson held him to just 20 significant strikes, I said, over 3 rounds. He landed 30 rounds. Woodley, 1 for 1 on takedowns. He's talked about wanting to shoot more. I don't know if that's a good idea. It certainly looked like it could be a good idea if you don't know anything else about Tyron Woodley that we do. But it was certainly something that he will probably look to implement in his game, or potentially at least consider implementing. Thompson had talked about adding some muscle, upwards to 8 pounds, has added 8 pounds of muscle. Talked about that in the media for this fight, looking to maybe be able to shrug Woodley off, not get controlled in those clinches, be more able to defend those takedowns. Could it hurt his speed, his cardio, his ability to perform those impressive striking techniques over 5 rounds? I don't know. We'll have to see. That's something we really can't judge too much upon. Now, looking at that first fight, I've gone back. I've watched it a couple of times looking to break things down. In that matchup, Thompson came out, traditional wide stance, looking to kick, looking to get his feet back under him as quickly as he possibly could because he knew what Woodley offered. Not a lot of action early on in the first round. Neither guy really engaging. Thompson was stalking, though, putting the pressure on him. Ultimately, Tyron Woodley caught a low kick for the only takedown of the fight. He did some damage from top position, landed some elbows, cut Thompson over. But ultimately, in that round, Thompson and Woodley won the round as a result. Without that mistake by Thompson, without that takedown, Woodley did next to nothing in round 1. We don't know if he would have shot later on, but still, it's a big round for Woodley, but it was based on a mistake made by Stephen Thompson. Round 2, Thompson backing Woodley up against the cage, limiting his space, looking to punch more, kick less. Woodley tied him up a couple times in the clinch position. To try and shut that down, but Thompson was controlling the action. Woodley was trying to charge forward, but he was doing that thing he does so frequently, and it's so bad for a fighter. He was getting his back stuck on the cage and put in a defensive position for most of the round. That shift, that ideological shift for Thompson from focusing on punching over kicking was forcing Woodley to keep his guard up and focus on the punches. It then opens up avenues for Thompson to kick. Thompson's able to kick more because Woodley's hands are up high. He's focused on defending his face, not catching kicks down by his side or by his waist or the lower half. That's a big win for Thompson in that scenario. Every time Thompson hit him, it was clearly hurting him. And when Woodley returned fire, he was coming up short and sometimes getting countered as well. More low kicks again landing for Thompson. As I said, as the fight continued, he establishes punching, more and more low kicks landing for Wonderboy. Round 4, we'll skip ahead to round 4. Woodley landed that big bomb of a right hand, hurt him, dropped him again with another right hand, swarmed him along the cage, went for the guillotine. That was a massive round. Again, it's that one scenario. Boom! Woodley wins a huge round right because of it. But Thompson survived the punches. He survived the submission attempt. Woodley gassed his arms out a bit. Thompson on top, landing punches to finish the round. But that was a big round for Woodley. In round 5, Woodley clearly was tired, not throwing a lot, looking for that one-shot opportunity to put the fight back in his favor. Thompson leading a lot of the exchanges. That was big. Woodley in that matchup had big moments. But from a style standpoint, from a head-to-head, Thompson controlled the majority of the fight. His style was better suited to go 5 rounds. Woodley was still very dangerous, as we saw. He clearly can hurt the challenger, or he can use his wrestling to ground Thompson. At least we saw that, for 1 round. But his moments were significant, but there weren't a lot of them. Can he do that again? Can he catch fire in a bottle again? That's a big question. The other thing is, if Woodley opts to use his wrestling and can't get Thompson out of there, will his cardio hold up in rounds 3, 4, and 5? We have seen time and time again with Woodley on multiple occasions when he can't get fighters out of there quickly. If he shoots them, we go back to the Strikeforce days, but anytime he is slowing down at the end of round 1, early in round 2, if he's not able to finish his opponents and they are able to push him, or if he's able to shoot and look for wrestle, even from top position, he's a heavily muscled fighter. It wears him down. It limits his ability to explode and attack and look for takedowns, look for those big strikes. So I would say this: Woodley's attempts to use wrestling too much could actually be detrimental to him if he cannot finish Thompson with that heavy ground and pound, which I think he absolutely needs to go for if he does get on top. So that's the thing. Thompson in that fight made adjustments to limit the wrestling potential that Woodley offered him. Punch Woodley to shoot off of the cage where you can't be nearly as effective at changing levels because you don't have that area to burst. You're backing up. Force him to cover a lot of ground if he has to. Force him to cover up and then kick, attack there. It shuts down everything Woodley had to offer short of that big right hand that hurt him and that early takedown. As Woodley tires, he becomes far less effective. He can still explode into his punches, but he's far more limited over the longer stretch. And if he can't get those big moments like I just mentioned, he is not going to win this fight in a 5-round decision. And that was one of the very few scenarios I looked at where I felt if Woodley can't stop Thompson, he's not winning this fight. Well, here he had enough big moments where he couldn't get Thompson out of there, but enough to get the judges to at least not give him the loss, to give him either a win or a draw. Overall, Thompson can counter. He's a better striker. But what I don't like about Stephen Thompson is hands are low. And his hands are low, and that opens that opportunity for Woodley to burst forward and attack. And because Thompson has a tendency to wait at times on his opponents, looking to counter-strike, bait them in, If Woodley can just catch him at that right moment, like he did, especially as the fight gets your reaction is a little slower as the fight goes, he can crack him, he can hurt him, he can finish him. So unlike what Rory McDonald did against Woodley, where he pressured him and never stopped, was always in his face, jab, 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 back up, back up, back up. Thompson doesn't do that, and that's something that could certainly hurt Thompson. Rematches, and I always talk about this, rematches of epic long fights usually end quicker. I think this is one of those fights that's going to qualify for there. That Woodley is the tough fighter he is. We've seen that. He's got a flamethrower, a big, power puncher, big power horse wrestler. It could be a mistake to look for too much wrestling early on unless he gets the early finish. It could gas him out and compromise his fighting ability over rounds 2, 3, and 4 specifically, 4 and 5 specifically. I think Thompson's a fighter that's more apt to make adjustments. We saw those mid-fight adjustments that were very effective. Woodley was still looking for the same stuff, and yes, it worked, but it didn't work enough to win the fight. It worked enough to avoid him losing the fight. I think Thompson will make adjustments between fights. He will punch more. He'll avoid those takedown scenarios. I think he'll keep. I wouldn't be surprised to see him keep his hands up a little bit more to try and limit those chances that Thompson has or Woodley has of knocking him out. Maybe not, but either way, I think Thompson makes the appropriate adjustments. His style looked better to me overall in that fight as long as he avoids those big moments. And I think he'll catch Woodley either countering or eventually he'll back him up against the cage. My prediction is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to once again defeat Tyron Woodley for the first time, just like I did last time. So Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to defeat Tyron Woodley by TKO. So that was a heck of a long breakdown for the last 2 fights. They're going to be excellent fights no matter how long they last. They could go a combined 10 rounds. We could see them last, a combined 65 seconds. I don't know. They're going to be fantastic one way or another. All my preliminary predictions, as is always the case, available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Now, I know a lot of people had some audio issues when listening to me. I listen to my YouTube videos, and the volume is not turned up all the way, and it is very loud. So, again, I don't know what the issue is. You have to figure something out, because I can't make any adjustments here. I've got the volume up, and, again, what I hear, it's exceptionally loud, and I've heard other people say it's fine, their volume's fine, so I don't know what to tell you. Thank you as always for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to me on Twitter, KO_predictions. Follow me on Facebook. Like my YouTube videos. Share the shit out of them. I don't care. If you want to buy my bet packs, that's fantastic. I appreciate everything you guys have to offer. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We got a heck of a lot of fights coming up ahead of us now, so time to get busy. Take care, guys.